Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video tutorial. Today I'm going to be talking about hands. So obviously this is Marc Brunet, and this has been requested quite a lot and it's long overdue, so let's get to it. The way I start this is with a circle, and that circle is going to be the width of your wrist. So don't make it too big or too small, because it's going to direct basically the size of your hand. Once you have that, you draw a tilted box on top of it that is lined up like you see here. And you sort of join the two top corners by this arc, and that's going to indicate sort of the line to follow for where the fingers are going to start. This would be as if your hand was palm down on the canvas, and it would be your right hand, so the thumb is going to be on the left, as you can see here. The first joint for the thumb would be lining up exactly with the corner of the box. Now you can use the center of that sphere that we drew, the first sphere that we drew, to line up the bones of your fingers. So in this case, the hand's going to be open, in a relaxed position, and those lines should match. So the first knuckle to the first joint, and to the wrist, it should be kind of like a straight line. If it's not, then the fingers will look a little bit broken. And you can see I sort of extended that line, that arc that we drew initially, just to give me an idea of the length of the thumb. That's kind of my guide for it. So it just crosses it a little bit by like about, in this case, like a centimeter or two. For the length of the other fingers, the middle finger is going to be the same size as the distance from the wrist to the first knuckle. And from this middle finger, you can sort of adjust the length of the other fingers, because they're going to be all shorter. The index and the ring finger is going to be a little bit shorter, but they're both pretty much the same size, the same length, and then the pinky is always the shortest. Now we're going to place the first joint on the fingers, because those are going to be indicating where the finger is going to be the widest, and then the other joint, the second joint, those in this case don't do much, but good to place them regardless, because that's those joints are where the fingers sort of bend, so always good to maintain like decent proportions. Now all we have to do from this point on is sort of connect the dots. So first, the only guide that we need that's left is the little U's in between the joints, the knuckles, and that's going to be indicating kind of like the webbing of our fingers, because you can see you have some webbing on your fingers, in between your fingers. And once you have that, then it's really easy to just connect the dots. So we're just going to add a little bit of meat around the bones of the first joints, like I was saying. And then you just connect everything. So connect the U's to the middle, the joint, the first joint, and then to the tip of the finger, connecting to the nail, and you have some nice fingers. So that's it for the proportions of your hand. Now what we're going to do is duplicate that so that we can do the other side of the hand, and then we're going to just clean this up. So I'm speeding this up because there's not much to do, just painting over it. Notice that the fingers on the hand facing down seem a little bit longer, just because you can see sort of the start, and you can see sort of the webbing from on the other side of the hand, as opposed to if you look at your palm, you don't see anything. It's like you don't see where the fingers, you don't see where the webbing begins, basically. So it gives the impression that your fingers are a little bit shorter. So yeah, something to keep in mind. Now for the lines, there's like three main lines on your palm. So there's the line that sort of does the contour of the thumb muscle, and then two lines that start from each side of the palm. The one on the left is tends to go down, and the one on the right tends to go up, just like that. And yeah, so now we have our hand pretty much complete. Again, we're just going to draw in the joints where the fingers would bend, and clean this up, and we're good to go. So now we're going to use this as a guide for proportions for the rest of the tutorial. So what I do most of the time when I paint is the following. So I'm gonna start with something that looks like a hand, but it's not by any means finished. The first one I'm doing here, I should have probably done the wrist, because the wrist is very important and in telling what sort of the fingers can do and what they can't, and it just adds a lot to the gesture, the whole hand. So in this first case, I'm not doing it, but don't do that. I'm gonna correct myself in the other ones. And so the idea here is that you do a really rough sketch, so that you don't have to spend too much time on it. And if you want to scrap your hands, draw something else on a different position, because hands are hard to draw and they take a while to get to paint them properly. So you don't want to invest too much time if you're not 100% sure what you want. So this is the idea here. You try a bunch of different things with just a couple brush strokes, something very simple, something that kind of looks like a hand, but you can tell that it's not it's not by any means perfect. But what you're going to do after that, once you have something that you're satisfied with, have a position that you like, now you can go in and sort of construct it in a better way. So this is what we're going to be doing now. So the way we construct hands, always draw the wrist like I was saying. So the wrist is going to be sort of just like a rectangle like that, and then it's good to draw the wrist, like as you can see, because all the other lines sort of flow out of that rectangle. So it's always good to draw them. The palm is going to be directed by those lines, and this sort of the range of motion of the fingers also. So you can see the palm itself is kind of like just this box thing, but where the sort of like how to explain this, as you can see, the side on the right of the image in this case is sort of like tilted, like slanted a little bit. And that would be again like the same thing I was saying with the webbing of the fingers. Now we're gonna just draw again, the starting point for the fingers. And good thing to know, this is the proportion of the proper finger. So the first distance between the first two joints is always bigger, and then it gets smaller and smaller until the tip. So yeah, keep that in mind, because that's very important. Otherwise the finger is going to look weird. So this is how I'm going to draw the fingers. So it's going to be a bunch of balls and then rectangles sort of linking them, not rectangles, cylinders sort of linking them all together. And make sure you get good at drawing this, because that's the foundation for fingers. And at least to me, it's the easiest way I've found, because it's really easy to see when something is off really quickly with this, and it's easy to fix because there's not much to it. So in this case, I'm just gonna draw my fingers, starting with these balls and cylinders that I was talking about. And it's you have to see them. In this case, it's sort of like in perspective, and that's why the cylinders kind of help, because how they sort of connect to the ball, it kind of tells you where the finger's pointing. So you can see, the pinky and the ring finger are sort of like pointing down a little bit, and then the middle finger is pretty much straight, and then it's gonna be the same thing with the index. And you can see the balls for the joint should kind of line up, so you should be able to trace an arc going from sort of joining them all, and should always be like a nice curve. So we should never break that, otherwise it'll look strange. It'll look like like your position is kind of wrong. So that's why I adjusted the length a little bit, so that my balls are in a nicer alignment. So if you want to see the other side of the hand here, because I have my thumb on the other side, this is kind of like the construction of the palm, the box palm that you should be doing. So for the thumb, this is where it attaches. So this it's a little piece that extrudes from the main shape. And now that we have this, we have all our proportions, and all we have to do is sort of connect the dots, add the flesh onto those bones, and clean this thing up, and we should have a pretty good hand. So again, like you start with something that's very rough, and then you try to construct this on top of it, and just to make sure that your hand is accurate and that things work. And this is how I do it, guys. After a while, you can top to do this because you'll start to see it in your head. As you can, I'm struggling a little bit with this one. I don't know why. So the index is still way too long. Yeah. So after a while, you just get used to doing this, and you can't stop kind of doing it. Just kind of see it in your head, and you can just go ahead and shade it, and it should be fun. But this is really good practice to understand how it works, and to work with perspective for hand, especially because it's the hardest basically to do. And also a good thing to know, the fingers are very flat at the top. So if you look at it from the front, also the finger would be curved at the bottom and very flat at the top. That's also good to know when you're about to do your shading, because it's not going to be much. The light's not going to curve that much on the the top of the fingers. And basically at the top of your finger, this is where the bones are, and then at the bottom this is where the padding is. So that's why it's a little bit a little bit curvier. So something to keep in mind. And so yeah, we have our hand. That's pretty much it. So I'm just gonna clean it up a little bit more, and then that's pretty much it, guys. So that's how I do it. I hope this was helpful. I know I could probably cover a lot more for this because hands are so complex and there's so much stuff to to go over, but hopefully this was good enough. And again, thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support so far. You guys are awesome, and we'll see you guys in the next video. All right, bye bye.